My message this morning is titled, How is Unity Different and the Same? And I was hoping that this title would spark some interest in you because my goal is to give you some information that maybe could help you share what we're about here at Unity without scaring off the masses, you know. On the website for TruthUnity.net, I found an interesting article from Eric Butterworth, and actually the thesis that was written by Rebecca Gitrich Whitecotton, which is hard to say. Anyway, and they were titled, What Makes Unity Different? But I thought we should add the same. And they had these three main points: who we believe Jesus was, how we practice what Jesus taught, and our openness to other teachings. And they said these are the three main things that we see in Unity's teachings that could be considered different. Well, many of you already know this, but Jesus, we see Jesus as a man, just like any of us, who tapped into that Christ within, became enlightened, became directly connected in consciousness with God, and he was living and expressing and manifesting the divine in the real world. But we know that Jesus wasn't the only one doing that, where a lot of people think that Jesus was. In Rebecca's dissertation, she wrote this definition about Jesus. Rather than being the only Son of God, Unity teaches that Jesus was a way shower, one of many sons of God who was able to overcome his humanity by fully manifesting the Christ Spirit within him. According to Unity, we are all children of God with the same potential for manifesting our innate divinity. Now, maybe some of you don't feel like you could walk on water like Jesus did. But the thing is that if we believe that Jesus was our way shower, then we have to know that we are capable of a lot more than we ever thought we could. Now, before I came to Unity, I was not a Jesus lover. You know, I never really could understand the whole theory of Jesus. And I didn't like it because I felt like Jesus was like a go-to person, you know, kind of like a priest. And I guess that's what I related in my head, because we always had to go to the priest. We couldn't just go straight to God. And I thought that was a bunch of pahooey, because I thought I can have a chat with God anytime I want to. I don't need to go to somebody else, and I never could understand that. So when I heard from a Unity minister that Jesus was a way shower, I could really get behind that truth. I thought, well, that makes sense. He did all these cool things, and they're telling us that we can do these cool things, that he was showing us that when we tap into these abilities. This made me think that we are just touching the tip of the iceberg, people, because we have not even began to see all that has happened in our lives. And really, if you look at your life and you know, pinpoint those great moments that you thought were like a miraculous moment or whatever, you know, and look at them, you'll see that you were in that zone of having something manifest in your life that you thought probably couldn't have ever happened before. And that's what it's all about, just seeing those little things and seeing how they really were great things. That changes a lot, and it makes us realize that we are capable of doing so much more, and we can experience more and enjoy more just by switching our thinking, just by having a new idea. But for me, knowing that Jesus was a way shower just validated a lot of the discoveries I had found over the years, you know, and that I knew tapped into my spiritual beingness. You know, I explored a lot of different things, astrology, all these things, and I would always find these little tiny things that just sung to my soul. No matter what I looked at, no matter where I was, there was little tiny things that seemed cool. You know, I went to work at a jean store when I was a senior in high school, and which is an upgrade from working at Dog and Shake before that. But we sold incense. You know, we sold a ton of incense, $1 a package. I've only seen the incense in the Catholic Church that came down the aisle that I didn't like that smell at all. But we had these incense sticks, and I was like, man, this is really cool. And then I found out, you know, incense really came from Hinduism. I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. I'll have to read something about that. All these little things lead you in a direction to explore if you allow them to be those prompts for you. But the other major discovery that I had with this was to know and understand that Christ part of Jesus. You know, Jesus Christ is not the only Christ. I hope we all know that. And we too can have that last name. You know, everybody here can have the last name of Christ. Got me? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rosemary's shaking her head. What? Francie's crazy now. But it's true because we all have that Christ within us, as Jesus did. That's how Jesus, he tapped into that connection, that Christ connection, that Christ consciousness with God. That's how he was able to do all these wonderful things. All the wonderful things in our lives that we have been able to do is because we've activated that Christ consciousness within us. So Rosemary, you can be Rosemary Christ and go around telling everybody because you have the Christ within you. And once you recognize that, it's a beautiful thing. But from the revealing word, Christ is the divine man, that part of us that is the divine. Jesus is the name that represents an individual expression of the Christ idea. Christ existed long before Jesus. Is that my phone?
Probably. I don't think it's that one.
Anyway, so you have to look at this, okay? Let's read this again because something's interrupting. Christ is the divine man. Jesus is the name that represents an individual expression of the Christ idea. Christ existed long before Jesus. Do you understand that? You know, the Christ has always been, always will be. Never has been anything else but the Christ. And that's that connection with God. I like to think of it as my direct connection with God. And the thing is that Jesus showed up as a man or a human being just like each one of us. And when he activated that Christ within himself, he became Jesus Christ. So when we have those moments where we are activating the divine within ourselves, it could be in prayer meditation. It could just be in that moment where you feel so much love. It could be in that moment of gratitude for something. It could be in the moment of manifesting something that you had desired for a long time. Or maybe it's an accomplishment. You know, we have to look at these graduates from high school, college, or from graduate school or whatever. That's a major accomplishment that they have activated that Christ within them to get to that level of being able to receive that. And when we really look at every little accomplishment in that way, we are embracing that Christ connection and building it up more to where we are able to see more in our life. And it's so important. But this is saying that Jesus was just that man. He was the expression. You got me? We're all just an expression of God here on this earth, aren't we? But the Christ is the idea, the divine idea that has always been, always will be, and comes through us to express each and every one of us. I mean, the minute you get angry or upset or sad or depressed, claim the Christ within you. It'll switch your thinking immediately. Because the minute you know you're connected to God, you can't feel any of those other feelings. You will feel the love. You will feel the good. It will come through. And you have to be in that place. The definition goes on with this. It was the Christ mind in Jesus that exclaimed, "And now, Father, glorify me in your presence with the glory I had with you before the world began." Now, a lot of people would think, oh, before the world began. No, he is saying the same thing Reverend Warren said last week when he was talking about babies being born. When babies are being born, they have just come straight from being in the oneness with God. This is what Jesus was saying. Glorify me in your presence with the glory I had with you before I was born, is what he's saying. So when Jesus was one with God, he came to this earth, the moment he started activating that Christ within, he knew that he had that direct connection with God. He realized that was the same connection he had in the oneness of God before he was ever born. That's why I think even when he was born, he felt that so intensely. You know, the star shone over over the manger because he felt that Christ presence. We all might have had that too, but nobody recognized that star shining on us. We all, and if you, like Reverend Warren said last week, if you feel hold a baby, a newborn baby, especially one that's just been born, I mean, you just feel that energy of love. And that's what, that's what we have to recognize beyond just Jesus. That it's a huge thing. Anyway, in those moments when we really know God and are following divine guidance, we are the idea expressed too. In those moments, we have activated that Christ within us, and we are expressing God at the highest level that we are capable of expressing God. And that's why sometimes, we look at somebody and we let our mind, our small m mind, change the thought that we're having, because we could be in this place of enlightenment, a place where we feel the divine is right with us, and we let somebody else come in and take that away from us, or we let somebody else's reaction not allow us to feel what we're feeling. And we don't have to do that. Just go back to claiming the Christ within you and allow yourself to be in that frame of mind. That's like I said too about the caregiver booklet. When you're having a moment and you feel stressed out or whatever, take a break. Like I said, take a break in the bathroom, or take a break outside, take a breath, and feel God again. It changes everything. But when we do that, we are the idea expressed. Believe it or not everybody thinks this way, though. That's the bad thing, They think of Jesus as being the only one. The only one. And just think what they're missing. But I think even in that moment where they're claiming that Jesus was the only one and that we have to go to Jesus, I think that they are striving and longing within their soul for something more, for the truth to come out. Because sometimes they claim it so adamantly, and yet you can tell in their voice or their actions that they know there's something more there. There's a bigger truth there that they are longing for. So, this takes us to the second point of this whole thing. Now that we know what Jesus is, the second point is how we practice what Jesus taught. And I use this little graphic because, this is missing the mark out here, and this is hitting the bullseye, which is, in unity, we say all that is mistakes or things that we maybe aren't, expressing the best Christ self. But when we do hit that mark, it makes a whole big difference, doesn't it? We have that opportunity to believe that we are here to be that expression of God. And when that happens, we're going to hit that. One of the most important ways we can do it, of course, we know is what? Love. Love one another as yourself. And take that phrase and really let it sink in, because you have to love yourself in order to love someone else. But the moment you do that, the moment you feel a love for one part of yourself, you can love others without any conditions. And isn't that what it's all about? But that also opens up a pathway for us to see the oneness in all of us. It really does. Love does that. If we all have the divinity or Christ within us, which we were just talking about, then we can know we all come from the same unlimited potential we call God. Don't you agree?
Yes.
And we do not have to be saved. We do not have to claim anything, but just take that breath and know that we are a child of God. And that breath is so cleansing. Cleanses our minds, our small m minds, and it lifts us up. And this makes us a bit different from other churches, doesn't it? That we are able to do this, that we are able to see this. And it makes sense to us, but maybe it doesn't make sense to all the other churches when we say that we have the Christ within us and that you are divine. I mean, there are a lot of people that would argue that point with you, or think you're crazy, or say you're blasphemous, or whatever. But when that happens, I just go back to the same thing I say when somebody says, well, what is unity? Because I think we all need to have something that we say that can answer that question without making it sound like we don't even know what we're talking about. Because a lot of people in unity, let's admit this, we're all spiritual beings. We can say we're living that unity spiritual life, but we have to be able to say something to somebody else that asks us that question. So I say, we are Christian, we believe in Jesus and the Bible, and we are a positive path for spiritual living. Now, can anybody argue that point with me? Some people say that unity is not Christian, but it's always been Christian, and we do believe in Jesus a different way than most people do, but we believe that Jesus came here as the way shower, which is important. There was other way showers, the Dalai Lama, I can't think, Thich Nhat Hanh, who else has brought us all this wisdom and all this knowledge that we tap into, that Fillmore tapped into. We believe in the Bible. We metaphysically interpret it. We see them as characters of a story that helps us understand more about our own life in today's world. When Warren says the Bible needs to be rewritten, he's saying that because it needs to be updated to today's languaging, to today's life, to how we are living today instead of being so, old-fashioned, I guess you could say. But we are a positive path for spiritual living. Now, some people kind of say, well, what's a positive path for spiritual living? I've had people ask me that. But, we don't have to go into a great big long to-do about it. We can just say, hey, we believe that we are spiritual beings on this earth, living a spiritual life and being positive. In Unity, we pray positive. We try to live positive. We try to live from not seeing the bad, but seeing the good. You say that to people, and people are going to be interested, I guarantee you. They're not going to think of you as being some crazy cult or whatever. But what that does is it opens the door. This way we're not closing the door and standing behind the door going, go away. I don't know how to say what unity is. No, we open the door and say, have you enjoyed being my friend? Have you enjoyed meeting me? Because I'm a positive person, or I'm a spiritual person. And I hope that you have, so that you will feel welcome. And I open the door here at this church to anybody that wants that in their life. And you just say that, because that's what Jesus did. He just opened the door for people to understand, and for people to listen, and for people to hear the stories. And he told stories a different way too than, he used parables and stuff. And we just look at it like that, like we're opening the door. And if somebody's really asking you these questions, guess what? They probably are searching. They probably are longing for truth in their life. And it's easy to just say, hey, swing wide the door. But this leads us to Rebecca's third point, which is, here. There you go. We believe in positive thinking, affirmations, and putting an emphasis on the spiritual aspect of everyday living. That's what that positive path for spiritual living, that tagline that Unity uses, that's what it means. Positive thinking, affirmations, and putting an emphasis on the spiritual aspect of everyday living. Isn't that cool? We all know that. Positive prayer. We do this. Affirmations. We do that. We try to live a positive life each and every day. Those three things is what you can tell somebody that asks about unity. Or somebody that you can tell is searching, or somebody that you can tell is unhappy with their life right now. You don't have to fix their life. You lift them up in prayer. And you can even say, I'm lifting you up in prayer and holding positive affirmations for you. It might open the door for their mind to say, wow, that's really cool. Anyway, so the third point is our openness to other teachings. Now this is kind of an interesting and important one because, we know that unity and New Thought teachers and teachings were evolved after the Civil War, and it was a time of new beginnings and a time of new discovery, wasn't it? And what happened were people were hungry for growth. People were hungry for something different. I think people are hungry right now for something different. I think people right now are hungry for spiritual growth. But what happened is this curiosity stimulated a return to capital T truth. A return to what we know to be true, like a newborn baby. It's in all of us. And that we have these longings off and on to find the capital T truth, to find that true connection with God. And I don't know about you, but I have in the past, cried out to God, that I need you, God, in my life, and realized by that very statement that God is in my life. It's self-realization. But anyway, it led people to start speaking out, having platforms. They didn't do it so much in their churches. They did it by having meetings and having, big assemblies and stuff of people that were curious, and they would go and listen to these speakers, and they would write out their messages, and people in the audience even had copies of them to read along, and they would take this home, and they would soak it in, and they would realize that was sparking that innate truth within them, and it started opening up a lot of doors. And that's where the power of the spoken word and the written word really got it enlightened a lot of people. And this is when Myrtle Fillmore began Silent Unity. And Silent Unity was people wrote into her, and she responded with positive affirmations or positive prayers, and it was all in the written language. Also at that same time, she had that personal healing. So people were curious about that and wanted to know how that was happening. A lot of people were having that happen. A lot of great New Thought, unity leaders even were having this. And so what happened is Myrtle shared the power of the positive thinking, the creative power of the mind, to use as a tool for health, prosperity, success, creativity, and more. We're doing that right now. We are still doing that to this day with every time we pray. She taught the power of positive prayer that was not only based on truth, but a means to connect more innately with God. She shared it freely with the world through the written word. Because she never charged one bit for anything that she sent out. Any prayer that she sent out, she didn't ask for money, but people sent in money because when they started using this, they were having success in their life, which is so important. Meanwhile, while she was doing this, Charles started studying prayer and meditation. He was into studying other world religions. We go back to that third point where unity is open and receptive. But what Charles was doing is finding those golden threads of truth in every teaching, in every religion. And he was bringing those forth and seeing how he could use them in his life. That's where meditation became so important. But he also discovered that prayer was connected in meditation and that it gave him a deeper sense of a connection with God. By studying other paths to God, though, he chose to be open to these many paths and be inclusive of other people's spiritual journey. He felt it necessary to stay open to meet people where they are at without judgment, fear, or criticism of their beliefs. This is what's huge in unity. There's not other churches that have been openly receptive to other world religions, even though they've shared some of that stuff for years. And it's amazing that we still think of them as different religions because there are those golden threads. Golden rule is in all the religions, for example. But what was what was really kind of discouraging for me was I was looking at UMOS, our Unity Mid-Atlantic States Ministry Association, and they've gone to a certain retreat place for their meetings, I guess it's the ministers' retreat. They had gone there for several years, and I was looking at the requirements and the restrictions, mainly because the last one, before this last one, they were there. And I wanted to see if they allowed kids there or whatever, because I thought, well, if we could work it out, we'd go and have the boys go. Well, I didn't ever find anything in there about kids, but what I did find was they don't allow yoga. No yoga could be done on their grounds because their belief system does not believe in yoga and the teachings that go along with that. I was so shocked, and I was very surprised, and I was going to point it out, but they switched now where they're going after this one, so I was kind of glad about that because I thought, that's religious persecution on a whole other level. I mean, what are they going to do if somebody that is just a participant there or renting a room there for a silent retreat who is in their room doing yoga and they catch them doing yoga? Are they going to kick them out? I mean, it was just so bizarre to me. And I think about some of the things that people get so hung up on and that they don't look at what is in there, that golden kernel for themselves. But Fillmore was really good about finding all that. And I'm glad that we're, all in unity. I'm glad that we do not shun people or, build up the fear, the guilt, the shame. And I'm glad that we don't live by that hell and damnation. That's a huge thing. And, sometimes I've said that to people. We're a religion that does not throw the shame and guilt around. And we do not make judgment because we know that we're not the ones to do it, whatever. But we have freedom to believe the truth in unity. And the truth we claim is not new. And Fillmore always said this. We claim it to have always been and will always be. And it will. That's how you know truth. You know truth because it's there. It's not going to go anywhere. And so Rebecca also claimed unity people as an individualist. And this is huge. An individualist is a person who is independent and self-reliant, or an advocate for a social theory favoring freedom of action for individuals over collective or state control. That's the Wikipedia definition. But another way to look at it is like this. Individualists, which are unity people, tend to be independent thinkers who don't need the control that everyday churches tend to have over someone. Wouldn't you say that's true? They do not have control. We tend to want to make our own spiritual decisions and live from the truth that we have come to know. We do. We all want to live from our version of truth. And believe it or not, everybody in this room's truth is not exactly the same. But we know that this whole unity movement was based on the idea that we are accepting people where they come from on their path and where they are on their path, and that we don't make that kind of judgment like, oh, you're sorry, Maria, you're not unity enough. You know, we don't do that. We accept where everybody is in this moment. But this could also be the reason why we are not filled to the brim every Sunday, believe it or not. Because we all get into unity. We're all excited. We're all loving it. Because this feels so good. And then what happens? We think, we feel so good, we don't need this anymore because we are spiritual beings, enlightened, and I can be one with God anytime, any place, anywhere. But you know what? We're missing the mark. We're going back to not really thinking the way we should think, or I hate to use should, but it makes us live in an oxymoron situation when we think that way. When we think that once we've become enlightened at some level, then hey, we're cool to go. We can live the rest of our life without ever having to go to church again, or live my life without ever having to read another book or take another class or talk to anybody about my spirituality. All these things. We get on that idea, and that's where the individualist comes in. But I think that's what makes us not show up every Sunday. You know, but we have to look at the other thing is that we need the human side of us, the spiritual side of us needs to connect, needs to be in a community. It needs to have a tribe, if you will. You know, we have to. Because this is where we're all the same. We're all the same because we need that village. We need people who can understand us. And that's where a lot of churches grow, believe it or not. That research, that thesis, she had done a lot of surveys that showed that the traditional churches were growing during that time, which was in the late 90s. But they were growing during that time because people felt like they needed to be there, or else, you know, the shame and guilt comes in. But we weren't doing that. We were growing in the 90s too, in unity, because we gave people the opportunity to know that they have their team, they have their community, they have their village, they have a place where we can bond and grow and be all that we need to be. And I think that most churches strive to try to have a community for people, but unity is a little bit different. And I would say that we're all that independent thinkers is where it comes into. And that's cool because that means that we're all going to hopefully be able to say what we feel and do what we need to do in order to grow. But I feel like Unity East of Atlanta is always striving to bring forth that spiritual essence that Charles and Myrtle both started Unity with. We, as human beings, need that, oh, I didn't know I had that highlighted up there, sorry, tribe, a village of people to connect with in order to feel alive. We can all sit at home and do nothing. Sit there, you know, COVID should have taught us that that was not a healthy time for anybody. I mean, people post on Facebook, oh, I've gained, 50 pounds, or I don't want to go anywhere anymore. I don't have to get out of my pajamas. I can just, whatever those things were. But it's like, why? Why do you want, it's like giving up to me. It's like giving up if you're just sitting at home all day, every day, doing nothing. I mean, don't give up. Life's too fun. You can have so much more enjoyment in your life. Anyway, No matter whether you think unity is different or the same, you can know that we follow the truth and know that we are a safe environment for everyone to discover their oneness with all humanity. Thank you for being here today. God bless you.